Hello, welcome. My clock
Thank
is
you.
wrong. It says 13 of 15, but it's actually 10 o'clock. So I'm gonna have to go in and fix that at some point. But alright, welcome. We're not that many people here, but that's fine. I'm still popular, guys, on YouTube. You see, no? Still popular. Keep subscribing. Don't unsubscribe, please. My mom checks my subscriber count every day, so she'll know. So we did some widgets last time, and it was pretty fun. I had fun. I don't know about you guys, but I had fun. But it's crashing, and that's not fun. That's anti-fun. So how do we make it not do that?
Set something in the game mode and set something in the project settings.
Very descriptive.
Do the thing with the
the
stuff.
blueprint.
Yeah, exactly. Do
Set
the thing with the stuff.
widget in the blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to fix that yesterday, but this still crashes for me. So
yeah, it's the yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, Thomas. That's what we need to do, and that's kind of what we started doing. That's kind of what we started doing yesterday. But we didn't finish because we ran out of time. Our time is up, young one. You must die. Yeah, so the thing is, like, we have this. So yeah, we have a clue here. New object called with a null pointer class object, right? So that's the clue. So we're trying to new object something, but we didn't provide a class that's it's actually good. So yeah, it's this one, right? We made a U property of a T subclass of a U user widget. But of course, to set this, we actually have to make a BP version. So we can make a BP version to set this property to some sort of blueprint widget. And we did do that, right? I did make a BP race game mode. So we did override this in blueprint. And I did go in here and set this to a valid widget. So what's going wrong then? Why are we still crashing there? Why is the class pointer still nothing?
I'm using the wrong game mode override in the world settings.
Yes, exactly, that's it. So we did make a blueprint version. Of course, if I go into settings, project settings, maps and modes, here in default game mode, we can see we're still using the C++ version. We're not actually using our overridden blueprint game mode that we made. So we have to make sure to set that here. Because again, this is making a new class of game mode. So we actually have to make sure to use it. The C++ one still exists in its broken ass state. Ta-da! Now we have a widget. Perfect.
What's the difference between doing that override in the project settings and the world settings? Because I did it in world.
Yeah. So doing it in world settings, because here you can see we have a game mode override here. That will simply override the default for this one map. So this will be used like if we made like a team deathmatch mode and a team deathmatch map and a capture the flag map. In those maps, we will go into world settings and override which particular game mode we want for that one map. But if this is set to none, it will simply use the default one we have set here in maps and modes. So either it's the default or we can override in a particular map.
Is it possible to do vice versa? Instead of putting it in project settings, you just put it in the map? Or is that not possible?
You can do that. I mean, you can just have it. you can just have this be just nothing, or like some like game mode base, and then in every map go in and set it to whichever one you want. If that's kind of what you meant.
Yeah, it's like so
Yeah.
that instead of having one global, you just have a specific one for each mode, so you don't always have to override that you
Yeah.
use the one in the map as the default one, basically.
Yeah, you can set it up like that for sure. Which we might as well, which we very likely might do actually, because if we want to do like a menu or something where there are no cars, perhaps there we would like to have just as default game mode. Then of course I could just go in and override it here, but yeah, it's sort of up to each project how you want to set that up, whichever one you think fits the best. But alright, so we have the widget now, our nice little game overlay. So that's neat. So we want to make it. Well, first of all, we kind of want to do so. Yeah, so we want to add it. So right now there's 4 faces, and these were supposed to be kind of the player or the player UI, right? So this would be player 1 in the top left corner here. I will display like which item I have, maybe my name if I have a name, and so on. And we want that to only be visible if there actually is a player 1. So if there is no player 1, then don't show this. So in this case, where there's 2 players, where I player 1 and player 2, we don't really want to see this bottom left and bottom right face. These shouldn't be here. So we have to remove those. Or asking a different question, what if we add them in as they were needed? Instead of like adding them all in and then removing them, how about we add them when a player actually does exist? I think that sounds better. So, let's do that then. Let's fucking go then. So I'm gonna hop on over into Race Overlay. And what I'm gonna do is that I'm actually gonna split these out, these images here, into their own widgets. So I wanna have just one widget for player status. And then in the overlay, I used add 4 of those player status widgets. So I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna make a widget that is supposed to be a player status widget. So do WVP. I again used to override the interface user widgets. User interface widget blueprint. Sorry. So user face widget blueprint. And now I'm gonna make WBP player status. So now we have a new widget. Now, what I'm gonna do is that I'm actually gonna remove this canvas panel here. We don't want the canvas panel for the player status. While it does make sense for the race overlay, so that we can sort of move stuff around kind of as we want and place them with anchors and things, which is kind of nice. For the player status, I just want this to be just one little square which set size, and the layout should be working a little bit differently. I don't want to be able to move stuff around quite that freely, so I'm going to remove this canvas panel.
What does the canvas panel even do?
We'll see in a second. That's a good question. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a size box. Alright? So I'm going to add that in. And a size box just kind of defines a size. That doesn't really make sense now. We'll see in a second how that kind of works. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set width and height override to be... How big were these actually? 150, okay. 150 by 150. And we didn't really see any change. Like, it still looks the same. Like, even if I like drag these around, nothing's actually changing on screen. Why is that? Well, this has to do with desired size. So every widget can specify some sort of desired size, how big the widget wants to be. That may or may not be kind of overridden. And it doesn't really have to. Like, for example, the canvas doesn't really have a desired size. It's just saying, like, I fill up as much space as I have. Like, if you put me on the screen, I will take up the whole screen. I don't care. I don't have a desired size. Which sometimes is nice. It's very nice for a canvas, for example. But for our player widgets, our little player status, we don't want the player status to just fill up as much space as it can. We want to say, like, you should be this size. This should be your size. And that is kind of what the size box does. It will say, like, okay, instead of just taking up as much space as I can, I just want to have this size. So now we're setting it to be 150 by 150. However, this view here doesn't care about desired size. It will just do kind of like the canvas. It will just say, like, oh, I don't care what your desired is. I'm just going to fill you up as much as you can. So I'm going to go into screen size here. Whoops, sorry. Fill screen here. And I'm going to click this desired here. Boom. And now we see the widget as its desired size. So this is how much space the widget wants to take up, rather than if we force it to just fill the screen. So now I can see that our player status widget is quite small. So that's good. And then I'm just gonna plop a image in here. Boop. So I just plop that into the size box here. I'll name it icon. Let's hit F2. F2 to rename these things. Now, if we look up here, when I select the icon, suddenly these settings don't look similar to what they did before. Remember, in the overlay, when I click an image, I have all of these settings, right? I have like anchors, and I have positions, I can drag them around, like, you know, I can do kind of whatever I want. But in this image that I added to the size box, I don't have those settings anymore. And that's because these settings are not a setting on the widget. They are actually a setting on the canvas. You can see here it says like slot, canvas, panel, slot. So that means these sort of things, setting anchors, moving it around, setting the size to whatever we want, that is actually a feature of the canvas and not a feature of the image itself. So that means if we add the image not to a canvas panel, but instead to a size box, we have a different set of settings. We can't move this around however we want. And instead we have these, like, I can set like the alignment. And I can set some padding. So I can do like 5 padding or 10 padding. But that's it. These are the only settings I can use. And this is a feature of the size box. A size box, when you attach something to it, does not allow you to move it around however you want. You can only change these things. And that's just sort of how the size box works. And, you know, size box and canvas are not the only types of containers, because that's kind of what we call these widgets. I would say that, by the way, everything in here is a widget. Like, so when I say widget, it could reference like the canvas, it could reference the images, it could reference the whole overlay as itself. So canvas panel and size box are considered container widgets, as in they don't draw anything. They don't actually have any visual tied to it. All they do is tell you how to align its children. It controls how its children are aligned on the screen. Okay. So it's okay if that doesn't make... it's okay if it still feels a little bit like what? It takes a while. It's fine. We'll just deal with it. So I'm gonna add the icon here. So just went into the icon in the size box and just like in the brush, expand that image, and you selected something. So now in the race overlay, instead of having just these images, I'm gonna remove those. And instead of those, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add our player status widgets. So go here, VBP player status. I'm just gonna drag that in. So now you can see that we have our excuse me. Now we can see that we have our player status widget here in our canvas. And now we can more closely see what the difference between desired and sort of this overridden size means. So you can see that I can sort of size this however I want. Like I can make it fill the whole screen, right? Even though we have a size box that says like, oh, I have a width and height override. This is only a desired width and height. Like if it could, then it wants to be this size. But I can override that as much as I want and make it whatever size I want. However, if we say like, hey, I don't want to override your size, you can just be your desired size, then we can click this size to content button. Boom. And now this widget will just take whatever its desired size is. So that's the difference between sort of what desired size is and, you know, how that relates to actual size. Sure, your desired size is nice, but I can override that. And I can make you whatever the fucking size I want. So now let's place these out then. So I'll do 80, 80. Size we don't care about anymore. Like we can set this, but it won't change anything. So let's copy these out.
Mine is not showing the image.
It's not showing the image.
Oh.
You might need to compile the player status widget.
Oh yeah. And yeah, there. And where did you choose the desired size somewhere?
Yeah, in the size box. So on the size box, I just set this width and height override here.
Yeah, but in the overlay,
Oh,
did you make it use the desired size there, or
yeah.
just
You just click this
do that?
size to content.
Oh, there it is. Thanks.
Yeah. So that will make the widget use its desired size rather than whatever size I put in the canvas in the canvas slot. So I would say most usually you use desired size when you're making widgets. You don't want to be able to resize widgets at any time. Like you can just go ham and just resize the widget to whatever you want. I would say that's quite rare. So that's why in almost every widget we made at Hazelight, we would have some sort of size box as the root. Just to say, like, this is kind of the size I'm envisioning this widget being. Like, this widget should be around this size. So that's why size box was very common.
Where was the desired size tick box in the menu?
In the overlay, we click on the player status widgets, and then we click this size to content here.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I suppose I could show you some other overlays or some other containers that exists that are very common. The absolutely most common ones are size box, horizontal box, and vertical box. They are the most commonly used ones. Size box we use on almost every single widget. Vertical box is quite neat. So vertical box is another container widget, as in it doesn't draw anything, all it does is just align its children. So now if I add some text in here, text, I just copy this a bunch of times. The vertical box will align all of its children vertically, amazingly. If I actually put some text here, test. So whenever we have a list of things, like a list of buttons in the menu, for example, or a list of essentially anything, a list of icons or a list of whatever, we would use either a vertical box or a horizontal box. So you can move this around, right? You can change the order of each of these widgets, but you cannot move them like freely. You have, again, just like with the size box, I cannot move this test to wherever I want. I can only select where in the order it should be in the vertical box. And again, same here. I have some settings that are kind of, vertical box centric settings for how the widget should be aligned. But then that's it. So I can make it fill, for example, to be like, take up as much space you possibly can. So now like test, like it will align some space for these other text blocks, but then everything that's left over will be used by test if I hit this fill here. And if I have two that's fill, then they will share the remaining area. So there's a bunch of settings, and these are just like play around with, like you kind of just play around to see kind of what happens. But yeah.
Can I put like a horizontal box inside of a vertical box?
Yes, absolutely. So I can do. So let's. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna right-click this test widget here, this test text, and I'll right-click and do wrap with. And then I'll do horizontal box. Where are you? There you are. Horizontal box. So now I have a horizontal box inside of a vertical box. So now if I copy this over, you can see that all of these test widgets are aligned horizontally. And this horizontal box is aligned vertically with all the other widgets. And this is how you would structure widgets. Like this is how you structure something. you would put containers within containers within containers. That is how you sort of structure things and how you get these complex behavior from simple tools. And this is why canvas is quite rarely used. Because with a canvas, you have to like kind of fidget with the positions and fidget with the alignments and the anchors and so on. While all of these horizontal and vertical boxes, it's like they're so easy to use. You just plop them in and you just add a bunch of widgets and it just looks good. So if I want to add some padding in between these, right? I can select and just add some padding on the left and right, for example. There we go. So now each element, each widget in here, each child widget in the horizontal box has some padding in between them. So that's quite nice. So that's horizontal and vertical box. You can kind of see that kind of keeps its size. And this is kind of the thing with horizontal or vertical boxes. They don't care what their actual size is. They're just going to draw whatever they can. It doesn't care what this actual size of the widget is. It's just going to draw what it draws. I set clipping here to clip to bounce. So I selected the vertical box. And here in clipping, we have clip to bounce. Which means that anything that's drawn outside of its actual size will be hidden. And then inherit, it just take whatever the parent's clipping mode was. Which in this case happens to be nothing. Right. So that's vertical and horizontal box. Another one that's quite frequently used is an overlay. So I will drag in. So let's go to panel and I will select overlay here. Panel overlay. Just drag that in. I mean, it doesn't need a canvas, of course, to work. Like, it works just fine on its own. It's just that then I can drag it around a little bit and just show you guys. But it doesn't need a canvas in any way. So an overlay will just draw all of its children on top of each other. And that's it. So if I add two images here, or let's say I make an image, like a background image. You can see it went to the top left corner, and I wanted to fill the whole overlay. So let's select horizontal alignment here. I'll just do fill on both axes. So then the image will fill the whole overlay. And then I'll add. Let's set an image first. I'll set this to. What the hell? Oh. Yeah, there we go. That's a nice background image. So I'll have an image, and then I'll add a text. So it will just draw these two child widgets just on top of each other, and that's it. And the order, like which one gets drawn first and last, is just the order of the children in the overlay. So if I put the text box before the image, now we can see the text is behind the image. And I can like center these two. So I'm just doing center alignment here on the text. And then I can do like, you died. There we go. So now we have a nice "you've died" message. And you know, I can move the overlay around and they both just kind of stay with it, which is quite nice. And I can resize it and you can see that the "you died" stays roughly in the middle. Unless I do this, but. So an overlay will just draw widgets on top of each other and that's it. It's quite nice. And you might ask, Why? Do I have to make an overlay to do that? I mean, what if I in the player status I just add another text here? Like, why can't I just add another text? And that's the thing. Size boxes can only have one child. They can't have two. So if I wanted a background for our icon for our players, I do have to add an overlay here. So I'll do wrap with overlay. And now the overlay can actually accept additional children. So now we can have a text block here to say player 0. So now it's a size box to define the desired size of our widget, an overlay so that we can have multiple widgets drawn on top of each other, and then an icon and a text. So this is how you concatenate widgets to get functionality. And it's very nice. It makes your widgets very sturdy, as in like they kind of work a lot. Whereas if you use Canvas, it's very prone to breaking when, you know, the aspect ratio changes and, you know, whatever happens. But with a size box and an overlay, you can very easily just tweak everything to make it work very nice. So Canvas is very rarely used, I would say. I think in It Takes Two it was used maybe 2 or 3 times. And almost always stuff like size box, overlay, vertical boxes, horizontal boxes, that is what's used. And that is why I kind of prefer the Unreal widget system to Unity. Because I feel like in Unity, kind of canvas is kind of the default. Like everything is a canvas. You can just drag everything around all the time and you have to worry about anchors and blah blah blah. I think there probably is like vertical and horizontal boxes and stuff like there as well. But I do like that in Unreal you can just kind of throw away the canvas and say like, I don't need you. I'm just gonna make my widget a lot simpler using stuff like size boxes and stuff like that. It's quite nice.
They're working on something that's similar to Unreal, but they haven't finished it yet.
Oh, okay, really? Oh, that's good. That's good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The animation thingy on the bottom there. I don't know if it's related to the UI stuff going on.
Oh yeah, it is. We can do that actually. Why not? Now that we're into the sort of the now that we're in the widget system, why not? So that's another thing that's very nice about the widget system in Unreal. It's super easy to add animations. And the animation is quite good, I would say. The animation system. So I'm just gonna remove this vertical box for now. Let's see, when you die, you have a message that pops up like, oh, you died. Like, oh, you're scary. So let's have that happen. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna add an animation. So down here in animations, I'm just gonna click this plus animation button. Boop. And I'll do a died enter animation. Or died enter anim. So now that we made an animation, we can either select a widget, go to this plus track, and we can see that we can add a widget to be animated. So now we can see, okay, so we've animated overlay 90 now. And let's say I also want to animate. So I want to animate overlay. And I also want to animate the player status for some reason. I can go in and add that as a track and so on. But let's say I only want to animate this overlay here. So now everything in here that has this little keyframe plus, like this little diamond and a plus, this can be added as keyframes. So I can do the enable bool, I can animate that, I can animate size to content, animate alignment, and so on. And all of this. In my case, I kind of want to animate. Let's do the transform. So the transform, we haven't really talked about this. This is an additional tool you have. An additional tool you have to move widgets around. I would recommend against being very sparing of this. Like using this. Like if you see I change the X, then it moves. I can also like angle and shear. I would say be careful of using this because it makes your widgets very confusing. Wait, did I animate the image? No, okay, whoops, I had the wrong thing pressed, there we go. Because now if I see here in position, if I set this to 0, 0, like the position should be here, like here's where it should be, but it's actually over here and rotated. So it becomes kind of confusing that you're trying to change the position of the widget, but it also has this like additional position here. So be sparing of using this to align your widgets, like to like move your widgets around on screen by default. I would say these should only be used, this like render transform here, should only be used if you really have to, or to do animations. You could, of course, also animate the position of the canvas position. But it's quite nice to have this centered at where it should be. So let's say I kind of move this. Whoops. Oh dear. I missed it. There we go. So I'll move this. God damn it! What did I say about Unreal's UI system being good? I take it back. Okay, so I'll just move this. Let's just reset this. I'm getting confused. There we go. Why can't I move it? Oh, I'm getting so angry. I'm getting so upset. I'm actually gonna kill someone. Okay, I'll just move it like this. So I'll move it where it's supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be here.
Remember that the UI system of Unreal is better than Unity.
Yeah, it's much better, guys. It's much better. I'm just getting angry at something else. Okay, so so yeah, so now it's where it's supposed to be, and then all I will animate is just the offset from that point. So I will sort of start off down here. So I'll move the translation to be down here, and then I will just animate it to be 0, because then I know when the animation is finished, it will be kind of where it's supposed to be, where it's supposed to end up. So what I'll do is I'll set this to 500. So let's say we want to animate it from down here. And then I'll just hit this add keyframe here. So hit the add keyframe of the translation, of the transform. Remember to have the overlay selected. So you don't want to change the transform of like the background, for example. Like here. Like I can move the background as well. We don't want to move this. This should stay. You stay. It's just the overlay that I want to animate. And now down here in the animation, we can see that this transform track has been added. So under overlay 90, which is the widgets, we have this transform track.
Wait, how did you make it be like at 0?
You can just reset this.
But
What do you mean
how is
be
that?
at 0?
Yeah, for me the center is like up in a corner somewhere.
Oh, then you have to move the canvas position here.
Oh.
I think what I should do is probably set the anchor to be the bottom. I will do that. So I will set the anchor to be the bottom. So then I can 0 out the position there. Well, whoops, I have to set the alignment to be 0.5. 1. There we go. So I changed the anchor of the overlay. Again, remember to select the overlay. Set the anchor to be the bottom. This little bottom button here. And then I set the alignment to be 0.51, so that this position will be represent this bottom middle part of the overlay. So then I can use 0 the X position, so that then it will be straight in the middle of the canvas. And I can set this to be however high up from the bottom of the screen I want the U died message to be. -90. Okay. So, right, where are we? Yeah, okay. So what I will do is I will drag this out in the animation, and this will actually define how long our animation is. I will drag the right little column here and just drag that out. So let's say we want our animation to be 0.75 seconds. So I'm just dragging it to this 0.75 here.
Wait, how did you drag it?
In here, let's see if I can reset this here. Here you can see there's 2 bars around 0. Actually, what might actually be easier, you know what, let's not do that. What might actually be easier is to just like, okay, drag forward time to 0.75. I think this might be easier actually. Just drag to 0.75 seconds. Set translation to 0. And then add a keyframe. Boom. Yeah, that was easier. So now you can see if I do this, scroll between 0 and 7.75, you can see that it moves up and down. Because we have one keyframe here being 500 in translation, and one keyframe here being 0 in translation. So now we have an animation. I can hit space. That is what it's going to look like.
Where is the add keyframe button?
It's this little diamond with a plus to it. So it's next to the parameter that you actually, or the property that you actually want to animate.
Yeah.
So we can do the scale as well, for example, if I want to. Yeah. Let's animate scale. So let's say I want to do. Yeah, let's say it scales up, so I'll set it to 0. So I'm setting scale to 0, 0, adding a keyframe at 0 seconds. So now we have an additional keyframe down here, you see. So now we have 2 keyframes, one for translation and one for scale. Then I'll move to the end to 0.75. I'll move to the end. Set scale to 1. Whoops. And add another keyframe. Clicking this diamond here. So now we can see that it translates and scales upwards. You died. Looks quite nice. So how do we play this then? How do we actually use this in the game? Because right now if I play, you can see it only says you died and nothing's animating, it's just there. So what we have to do is that we have to actually play this in code somehow. And that's quite easy to do, because widgets also have blueprints. Yay! So you can also code your widgets to do stuff. So I'm just hitting graph here. Up in the top right corner, we have designer, which takes us to the widget designer. And then there's a little arrow to graph. And then we get to the actual code of the widget. So you can see that we have pre-construct. We're not gonna talk about it. Construct, which is like begin play. And then tick, which is tick. Yeah, it's just that easy. So I'm gonna remove pre-construct. You're evil. Bye bye. We might talk about pre-construct at some point. I don't know. So I'll drag out from construct, and just like other blueprints, I can sort of delay. So let's delay for 2 seconds. And then I want to play an animation. And the way you do that is that you go to the left, and here you can see in variables, first of all, we have some widgets defined here. That's good. We'll talk about that in a little bit. What does that mean? But we also have animations here. And here you can see under this subcategory animations, we have died enter animation. And wouldn't you know it, that's the exact same name as the animation we made. Amazing. Unreal. You're so good. You know what I'm going to do before I even do it. So I'll drag that out. Just drag and just, get. Or just, again, hold shift. No, sorry, hold control. And then I'll just do play animation. We have a lot of settings like start time, number of loops, play mode, forward, reverse, ping pong. Maybe we'll do ping pong actually, it sounds sick. Playback speed, restore state. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, we'll see that actually. Let's do this. So look, ping pong. Actually, let's do forward. Let's not get too fancy here. So I'm gonna delay construct, which means like whenever this widget gets added to the screen. I'll delay 2 seconds, and then I'll play the died enter animation. Ta-da! So you wait 2 seconds, and then the died enter animation plays. How nice. Now, it looks kind of whack that the you've died thing is on the screen before the animation plays. Like, that looks kind of whack. Like, it would make more sense if it's not visible at all, and then after the when we play the animation, that's when we actually show the widget. So what I'm gonna do... Oh. You can see when I've selected this animation that I can't even see the overlay. Like, it's down here somewhere, but since it starts out with a scale of 0, that means it's like it's not visible. Like you can see it's actually down here, but we can't even see it. But since I want to work on it now and I want to set stuff on it, maybe I want to move it around on screen or something. The way to get out of this state is to just like deselect every animation. So just like in here in animations, I just deselect everything. And then it kind of goes back to its default states. Like non-animated states. So you can see as soon as I click this animation, we go into the first keyframe of the animation. But if I deselect it, then we have like its default state with no animation is playing. So what I want to do is that I want to set the visibility of this. And I'm going to go in here. Here we have visibility. So behavior, visibility. And I'm just going to set this to hidden. What's the difference between hidden and collapsed, I hear you ask? Because you saw this as well, like, collapsed? What does that mean? It doesn't seem any different. Of course, this is actually not showing the updating state. Like, if I go into the game, you can see that it actually... Oh god. You can see that it actually is hidden. Yeah. You can see the visibility is hidden, but just for usability's sake, they don't actually hide the widget in the designer, just so you can kind of still click it and drag it around and stuff. So while it is hidden, it's still in the editor just showing, just so you can see what's going on. So it is hidden. I like this. Not visible, but uppercase layer scale. Obviously not hit testable. Like, obviously. The difference between hidden and collapsed then. I'm gonna add a vertical box. Just to show you. So add a vertical box. Oh shit, we haven't taken a break. Sorry. Let's take a break. You guys seem very tired. So let's do 14:20. Let's get back then. What's up?
The roof.
Funny guy here. Okay, we have a comedian in the chat room apparently. Can't believe you're in Star Wars, dude. That's crazy.
What? That my background is Star Wars?
Ah. Guys, if God was real, would you play Among Us with him?
No.
Hell yeah.
Among
Nice.
Us jokes in 2022. XD.
Very XD. Stream Rain World. The hell is Rain,
Rain
World?
World. Good game.
Is that a good game?
Are you recording this, by the way?
Yes. I'm always recording. Oh, I've seen that little guy. Looks pretty dope, actually. I might play that. All right. So, yeah, hello. What's up? So, hello. I wanted to explain what the difference between collapse and hidden is. So I'm just gonna add a bunch of text here. I'll do first, second. This became like kind of a little bit of a deep dive in UI, but I think it's very important. I can tell you, if just one person in your team knows how to properly do UI, it's gonna help out so fucking much. Yeah, so let's hide this second one then. So if I set this to hidden, boop. Let's see what that looks like. So when I'm playing the game, you can see that we see first, and then there's a little space, and then third. So the second is hidden, but it still seems to take up space. And that's, you know, if we hover over it, this is like not visible, but occupies layout space. And obviously not hit testable, obviously. So that's hidden. And the difference between that and collapsed is that it won't take up any space. So now we can see that first and third are right next to each other. So even though second was in the middle there, since I marked this as collapsed, that means it won't take up any space. So that's the difference between hidden and collapsed. So now you know. I'm sure you'll remember that forever. And won't have to Google it in 2 hours. So, right, this animation then. So we've hidden this guy. So let's show him when we actually play the animation. Whoops. When we actually play the animation. To do that, we need to have access to the overlay widget. So I can set its, its visibility. And the way you do that is that you click the overlay. I'll exit out of the animation so we can see it. I'll click on the overlay, and then here we have a bool that says is variable. So if I set that to true, Let's compile. And go back to the graph. Now we can see we have a variable here for the overlay. So now we can access it and set things on it. I'll name it something helpful. I'll do a die message overlay, sure.
Where is the bool located?
Right next to the name. So click on the overlay and then right next to the name, this bool is variable.
Ah, up there, okay.
And this makes it so that we can actually access it from code, from blueprints. So now I can access this die message overlay. It will be here on the left. So I can access that. Just drag and hold control. And then I'll do set visibility. And I'll set it to visible. Boom. Boom. Was that weird? Did I weird you out, Thomas?
I
So
didn't
now,
get it.
yeah, it wasn't a joke. It wasn't anything to get. It was just funny noise.
My bad.
You're not Gen Z enough. So now, when I play, after 2 seconds, we set the widget to visible and play the animation. So now it shows up. How nice. You died.
How did we set the visibility? After we drag out the variable?
You set visibility. Just drag out here
Yeah.
and then set visibility.
Yeah. Okay.
I animated the property in the inside the overlay instead.
Yeah,
But that way you can't get to it through code, so I guess that's the downside.
Yeah, you can do that. There's no problem with that. I was actually thinking about doing that as well, but I just thought it would become very complicated, so I just didn't. But it's I would probably have done the same thing. So you get a gold star. Let's say we don't think this looks so good. I don't think it looks so good. I will shorten it a little bit. So I will just select these. I can zoom in by control scrolling, by the way. Let's zoom in a little bit and drag with right click. So I'll zoom in and I just drag these keyframes. I'll put them at 0.5 instead, make it a little bit quicker. Yeah, so now it's a little quicker. To change the actual length of the animation, you drag this right red little line here. So now the animation length is still 0.75, even though nothing is happening. So you can change the actual length of the animation by just dragging this. By just dragging it. By just dragging this. You just drag this. You just drag this. Okay, you have to actually drag this right one. There. Okay, never mind. I don't know if they've changed this or if it's always been like that, but okay, never mind. You don't change this, you change the actual block here. So you drag this right bar in the track here. Just drag it like that. Are these outside? There we go. I have to wiggle them to make them back inside. So there we go. So that's how you change the length. And let's change the curve, because the animation is quite boring. It's like a linear, it's like a tween almost. I think it's a little bit of easing on it, but I don't quite like the curve of how this looks. So what I will do is that I'll select the two translation keyframes. I'll just select them with a box here. Boop. So I've selected these two translation keyframes. I want to change how it moves from one keyframe to the other. And I'll do that by just going to the show the animation keys in curve editor. So this little curvy line here, I'll click that. Oh, never mind. I have to select them again. I think they've changed this. Yeah. So now I can select each element that is animated, like each track, and see how the curve looks. So we can see that, okay, they did actually do a little bit of ease in, ease out on everything. So on the scale here, you can see that it's eased in and eased out. I can also check for each individual components. I can do for X and for Y. You can see that those are the same. For translation, of course, since we're only animating the Y translation and the X is just constant, we don't actually move that. If I click on translation, you'll see that we have one line for X. This is the flat line for X, and we have one for Y. But so to change this is like a regular curve, so you can select like which type of node this is gonna be. If we want it to be linear, it'll become a linear like this. You can do a constant, which is like, I've never used this. I have no idea what the point of this is, but yeah, you can make it constant, so it just snaps from one to the other. I'll do auto. And then all I'll do is I'll just drag this tangent here to make it more of a quick, snappy animation like this. So it speeds up, and then we have more of an ease out animation like this. So let's see what this looks like. So I'll just play. Yeah, it looks quite nice. So they can see it very quickly goes up. It very quickly goes up to the target. Yeah, I was gonna do that actually. So something I like to do. I didn't get to do it a lot in It Takes Two because our art director didn't think it looked so good. But you can do overshooting like this, which I think it looks quite nice for animations. So if I drag the tangent down even more, you can see that it actually overshoots the target and then goes back down. And this looks like a little jump. Like that. You can see it actually goes a little bit above where it's supposed to be. And then goes down again.
How did you change the curve type?
You right click on a particular node or in a key, and then you can select the curve type here.
Okay.
No way, Ruta. No way. No way in hell would you want to do this with math.
How do you make it go back to default? Like the default curve.
Oh, you just right click and do auto.
Okay, thank you.
When I right click a node, the menu just disappears.
Oh really? You might have to do like move it to the other screen and do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is how you control the curves of the animation. It's quite nice. I think it's quite powerful. You can also add new keys here. So you can right click on a curve to add new keys. So let's say I want to have like a funky ass curve like this. Or maybe I'll do something like this. It's gonna look so bad. I'll just add a bunch of keys everywhere. So fix the... There we go. There we go. So now it does like a super weird fucking... I don't even know what that is supposed to be, but yeah, you can do this. If you want to, you freaking weirdo. You can also just like change the numbers. So in here, if you select a key, you can select here what the value should be. So let's say we want the animation not to end up at 0, we want it to actually go a little bit up. I can just move the key downwards like this. It also snaps quite nicely, which is nice. So now it does a super weird ass animation like this. Yeah, it is like a jump scare. I'll move it back to 0, but yeah, so it's quite common for me to actually just sit only in these curve editors and make animations for widgets. So I won't actually like change the value and add a keyframe. I might just open up the curve editor and just add keys myself. just have a blast.
Could you say that like the values that you change at the top there make it overshoot, basically, right? Because then it goes over 1 and under 1.
What do you mean?
You know. Never mind. I'll just
Okay.
ask her that she seems to know.
Yeah, so you can do whatever kind of fucking animation you want. It's quite nice. I like this animator. I think it's very powerful and it's super easy to do stuff. So the artists can have a blast just doing whatever the fuck they want. It's very nice.
I can't change the curve type even if I right click on the curve.
Does it just disappear, this menu?
No, store curve, add key, paste, free.
You might need to
extra,
select
post
it
extra.
first. So first select the key and then right click. So if I just right click, I
Okay.
get
Yeah,
this.
now it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I can remove keys as well. Just hit delete and I can remove the keys. So that's quite nice. So now we have a very neato beato animation there. So if I play, you've died. Haha, funny. Did you get any answers from Ruta?
Yes.
What did she say?
I'm better than you, Emil.
Okay, yeah, sure. UI off, let's go.
I didn't hear you, sorry.
We're gonna have a UI off.
What?
Whatever. So now we have animations. Ow! I stretch so hard, my chest hurts. Ow. I'm an old man. So, so yeah, it's quite a thing, right? The Unreal UI system is, very. It has a lot of tools. It has a lot of stuff in it. And I'm just scratching the surface here. Like as you can see here, there are so many different types of widgets that you can use, like list view, tile view. I mean, here's some input stuff. Like you can have a text box that you can enter your text into, of course. Like here's a button, for example, if you want to have a button. It's like, of course, all of those things exist as well. So I'm just scratching kind of the surface of what can be done in the UI system. But I will say that I think this is the best UI system that I work with. I know that. I don't think I can. No, I don't think I can say that actually. Never mind. NDAs are a thing. But yeah, I can say that other companies out there use less good UI systems, and it really does hurt them a lot. It's just becomes so hard to do things. Cool. Right. So tangent aside, now we've done a huge dive into how the UI system works. Just gonna remove that. Like, we had fun, but it's time to move on. So I'm just gonna remove everything we just did. You can keep it if you want. Let's remove this edit animation. There we go. Yeah. So player status. Okay, cool. So we're back to where we were. So we have 2 players. And instead of adding these right now, what if we want to add them as a player enters the game? So when a player sort of comes in, then we want to add this to the screen. How do we do that?
Are we gonna animate them too, so we can like make them visible when a player, like their begin play or something happens?
We could do that, yeah, we could. I'm just thinking if we should... Let's just do it. Let's just begin at least. It's gonna be quite some work. But I guess we'll begin now and then maybe we'll finish it tomorrow. So what I'm gonna do is actually, I am going to make a C++ base class of this overlay. Because the problem with widgets, like we have them here, is that we can only interact with them through Blueprint. So if you wanted to add a player widget through C++, like in the player starter, for example, we would have some problems because it would be really hard to interact with this overlay from C++. So instead what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make a... Okay, bye-bye. I'm going to make a C++ base class for this overlay widget. So let's do that. So I'm going to make... I will say, during a way out, I didn't know about this. I didn't know... I just didn't think to even try to make a base class for a widget in C++. And that meant that all the menus, everything like that was made in Blueprint. And it became really complicated and really hard to work, and really hard to patch. So there was a lot of bugs in there. And that's why in It Takes Two, all the menus were so much easier to make, because we all just made the base classes in C++. So that made them so much easier to work with. As well as everything like crosshairs, and essentially like every widget that's on screen has a base class in C++, just so we can interact with it much easier. And it made just our lives so much easier. I'm going to go into Racing Game, source, FG Racing Game, and I'm going to make a new folder. I'll call it Interface. Maybe UI. Let's call it UI. Sure. And then I'll make race interface widgets. No, it's not. It's called overlay. Sorry, race overlay widgets. There we go. So now I made some files for this. I'll just make sure to save everything. And then I will generate Visual Studio Project files. There we go. So now in Solution Explorer we should find some brand new clean files. Let's drag those over. So now I have race overlay widget.h and race overlay widget.cpp. So we'll just do the usual. I'll include... Okay, so where's user widgets? So we want to override from user widgets. Let's just find where that is. User widgets. Whoops. Let's see. That is in UNG public blueprint. Okay, so blueprint then. So blueprint / user widget.h. Okay, we'll include race overlay widgets generated. Whoops. H. My goodness. There we go. So now we have our user widgets base class. So let's just compile it and make sure it works. Oh god, excuse me. We don't need U class? Yes, we do. Thank you. U class. That's my bad. Whoops. So now if I head over into widgets and VBP raise overlay, now I can do reparent blueprints. I'll go into file and then reparent blueprints. So I'll reparent this to, let's see here, raise overlay widgets. Boom. So now the base class of our overlay is no longer just user widgets. Our parent class is actually raise overlay widgets. Isn't that nice? Ain't that just dandy? So now what we can do is that we can do a function, something like add player status. I'll do int player index. So that we can get like which player it is, if it's 0, 1, 2, or 3. So that will be player 1 to 4. I'll define that in the CPP file. So here we want to create some widgets. And add it to ourselves. But how? So to add a player status, we need to create the player status widget. But to create the player status widget, we need to have the class. So we're kind of back at that again. That's the downside of C++. It's very hard to reference assets. So we're going to have to make a U property for that. So I'll do category is overlay. No, race overlay. Sure. I'll make it that edit. I'll do edit anywhere, whatever. I will make a T subclass of. And while in reality we kind of have to make a U race player status widget, I'll just make U user widget for now. So we'll just like player status. Player widget class. So this will be the class of the player status widget. So now we can do new user widget player status is equal to new object u user widget. We'll set the outer to be this. And then the class will be player widget class. There we go. Let's just finish this real quick and then we'll call it a day. We'll finish this up tomorrow. Like I said, there's a reason why there are dedicated widget programmers or UI programmers.
Just ask Krister, he knows what he does. He does when he does UI. He loves
really?
that stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
Krister loves UI. Oh, that's good.
Yep.
That's good. Okay. UI is easy, she says. All right. So okay. So let's see here. The blueprints, widgets, player status. Oh no, sorry, not player status. Race overlay. Right. So now to change the properties, the U properties of a widget, you click on this root here. You click on this VBP race overlay. And now over here we should see our player widget class property that we've added. So now we can set this to be VBP player status.
I might have missed a step, but did you change some what inherits what?
Yeah, I changed so that the race overlay widget blueprint. I did reparent blueprint and then set that to race overlay widget.
Let's see. Wait, what did you put in the race overlay?
I file, reparent blueprint, and then race overlay widget as the parent class.
No, I meant the race overlay. You put player status in it.
Oh yeah,
right?
you click this root widget here. This is the VBP underscore race overlay. You click this. And to the right in the details, you should be able to see all the properties. And one of them is player widget class.
Yep.
Cool. So now we have a way of referencing this player status. And just to test this out, I'm gonna remove these two, just so we have nothing. And just to test this out, I'm gonna make sure this is set to something, and then in the graph, in construct, I'm just gonna call add player. Oh, whoops, that I didn't make it a U function. God damn it. Okay, we'll make a construct in C++ instead. So I will remove this. And then in C++, I will just override construct. Actually, I don't think it's called that. I think it's called something else. Let's just...
Is it native construct?
It might be native construct, yes. You're probably right. Yes, it is called native construct. So that's the thing that's called in C++. It's called something else. So we have to call this native construct. There we go. There we go. So now we have the construct function in C++. And that, again, is like begin play for widgets. So that's called when the widget is added to the screen. I don't actually know if it's called when you spawn the widget, like when you do new objects, or when you add it to the screen. I have a hunch that it's when you add it to the screen, but I'm not quite sure about that one. And in here, just for testing, I'm just going to do add player status. Zero. Should we call super? Let's check. I have a hunch that yes, but let's check. Let's see, does it do anything in native construct? Ah, it does do things. Okay, so let's call, remember to call super on this one. Good catch. Right, so now on our native construct, and just to make sure that this runs, I will log here. So I'll just do ev log temp, log, view race overlay, widgets, native construct. Super! Right, so let's see what happens. I am a pirate. So now let's see if I play. We don't see anything. So nothing is here. And that's kind of expected, because remember in our race overlay, I removed all of the player statuses that are there by default. But we don't see the one we created, and let's see output log here. Yes, we can see here that race overlay widgets did call native construct. It seems like it's been called twice for some reason, which is a little bit worrying, but hopefully it's not a big deal. So we did call native construct, but still we don't see anything. And that's because, remember, in the game mode, sure, I'll put it here. In the game mode, we had to call this add to viewport to actually make the overlay show up. And it's something quite similar that we need to do now. Just creating a widget doesn't actually make it show up anywhere. We actually have to add the widget to something to make it show up. Because in the end, all widgets are a hierarchy. Like it begins with the viewport. The viewport is kind of the root widget. And then attached to that, we can add stuff. And then we can attach stuff to those. Then we can attach stuff to those. And that's kind of how widgets work. Like there's the root, which is the viewport. And then everything else just comes out of there. So we have actually have to attach this widget somewhere. Now, we don't really want to add it to the viewport. Like, we can try and see what happens. So I will just add the player status to the viewport. Yeah, so then this happens. Looks great. Looks fantastic.
Is native construct, has it got anything? Do widgets have anything to do with cameras?
Not really, no.
Okay, because you have 2 cameras in the scene. So I was wondering that native construct could be called because you have multiple cameras, but that's not the case though.
I don't think so, no. Maybe something adjacent to that is happening, actually. I might have to debug that and see. But yeah, so we see now that, okay, this is not what we wanted. It got added to the viewport. But of course, we don't want to add it to the viewport, because all that happens if we add it to the viewport is it's going to fill the whole screen. It's not actually part of our overlay widget right now. Sure, we have a reference to it, but we've added it somewhere else. We added it to the root. And that makes it just fill the whole screen. And that's, of course, the reason why our overlay fills the whole screen, because we added it to the viewport. Yeah, we don't want to add it there. We want to add it to the overlay canvas. Like, we want to add it here, so that we can move it around and have it be part of the actual overlay. But let's not do that today. Because that's gonna be a whole thing. So let's just not do that today. Let's do that tomorrow instead. I don't want to drag out too much. So tomorrow, we'll look at how we actually add a widget to this canvas from code.
How did you add the player status to the whole screen?
I did this player status at the viewport.
Because for me, when I write player status, it requires like an argument.
What?
Yeah, it requires like an argument. So I must have done something wrong again.
Yep. Make sure it's the exact same code.
It's always exact the same code.
Of course, always.
I'm gonna look through and see what I wrote incorrectly.
Yeah. So let's end it there. I'm sorry again that I overslept. It was really bad. But at least we were quite productive today. Got a lot done talking about or we didn't get a lot done, but we got a lot of knowledge into our brain. We now are experts in widgets. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, 9 o'clock. And then we'll finish up the overlay and get that done. So
Wait, 9 o'clock?
10 o'clock, I mean, sorry. If it was 9 o'clock, I would literally die. I would wake up and I wouldn't even go back to sleep, I would just die. So, yeah. So I'll see you guys back tomorrow at 10. Have a lovely evening, and don't do drugs. And I'll see you tomorrow. So, bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.